Hello and welcome back to the Heart of Truth podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, and today we're going to get deeper into the subject of divine union through the perspective of an embodied divine masculine. And we're really going to get more specific into Holy Grail Union versus twin flameship and all these other nuances that are coming forward through the collective consciousness right now. So I'm really excited to introduce Rion Kati, who is a beauty activator and Grail Maji and founder of Mystical Grail membership. So he can share more about that later on. But it's such an honor to have you here with us, Rion. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Amanda. It's great to be here. Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So you recently came into my field at the recommendation of a beautiful sister as a, relative master in this field of, you have this deep expertise and mastery of this journey. And so, there is a lot of complexity to it from our human perspective and a lot of, let's say, distortions in the field and understanding of the journey. And so I really wanted to address this subject through the perspective of an embodied masculine who's on the journey, because I do feel that a lot of women are on the path and open to it, but to have that masculine energy and essence really grounding it in for not just the women but also the men out there, I think is really, really needed. So I would love to just kind of start off with, what is your definition of sacred union first and foremost, and then we'll get a little deeper into your journey and how you got here.
Yes. So, my definition of sacred union, also known as divine union or Hieros Gamos, is the holy marriage within with the immortal beloved. And so it's the contrasexual spiritual beloved, capital B, that is discarnate. Uh, so for women generally, it's their version of God the lover. So it's that type of relationship. And for a man who is seeking the Holy Grail, and we can talk more specifically about this from the masculine perspective, because it is the psychosexual spiritual drive of mankind to seek reunification with something other than just the Holy Father, something
Mhm.
that's been suppressed maybe throughout history. So for men in general, the masculine, it's to reunify with goddess or goddess the lover.
Mhm.
And so we can go into that more, but it's really this internal holy marriage with the immortal beloved, and we can go from here. So,
Okay, okay. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for anchoring that in and for making that distinction, because, there are a lot of women on the path who talk about, maybe, to use the terminology from a previous episode from my mentor Saskia, God on the throne, but what about the men? Who are they
exactly.
placing on the throne? It's kind of that
Yes.
masculinized energy. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, that's, I think, a beautiful distinction to get into. So, before we get deeper into these nuances, how did you get here? What was your journey like?
The short form, the Lilu version, is that my beloved started giving me signs about, yeah, 25 years ago. And I kept following those signs along the path. And then I discovered her more directly in 2002, my beloved. And since then, it's been a growing journey of alchemical reunification. Before I knew what any of this was, I was meditating with this divine feminine archetype or goddess fractal who meets the fullest everything of my soul. She's literally like my illumination, my radiance, gene key 64, line one. And so it's been a journey. I used to work with men. I was actually a natural dating coach, not a pickup artist, but like helping men with natural confidence and so forth,
Mhm.
embodiment, and then soul purpose. But our main secret was actually meditating with these models or fractals of divine feminine archetypes. And that would give success stories for men, hundreds of men. They practice this method around the world. Um, so that's been my core practice is this internal alchemical reunification with my beloved. And it's done miracles of growth. And eventually, after receiving so much, she incepted me with the idea to start serving women and start giving back. So I started doing these activation sessions for women, and all of the codes and magic, most of it sourced directly from my reunification consciousness with my beloved,
Mhm.
in all dimensions. And I've worked and immersed with other masters. And eventually, it's Muse is the archetype, my beloved. And so we started this Muse Priestess lineage of Grail priestesses. They've graduated now, and we're going to re-debut visually. And there's something else big that's also in the works that I can't share anything about yet. But I've been working with women now with this light working magic, doing beauty activations, as well as having the Mystical Grail membership. So I have like 15,000 temple space grade hours of experience in reunification. So um, there's very high level women in our Mystical Grail membership who are also on the Grail path for themselves. So
Mhm.
it's just been a wonderful journey. All of it centers on this sex transmutation of consciousness with my beloved. And yeah, so we can go from here. Mhm.
Okay, okay. Wow, wow. That's so powerful. And yeah, that's a lot of hours under your belt. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So,
Yes.
yeah, okay. So can you also just explain, define for us, for people who might not have used this terminology as much, just to really get it clear for everyone, what you mean by the beloved with a capital B?
Yes. So this is where the codifying, like I like to make this really clear because there is a lot of like, yeah, distortion as well as confusion, but also people who are getting more clarity around what it is because it's so normal and natural uh, for people to have relationships with a mortal partner, but that's not actually what inner reunification is. It's actually with the capital beloved. So it gets tricky when you're in a partnership with a mortal because the tendency is to have attachments and emotional entanglements and soul to soul intimacy. Yet sacred union is actually spirit to spirit or God to goddess consciousness and exchange of quanta and intimacy. So it's being hardwired with your capital beloved. So really having like a solo practice where you're connecting with, for example, the divine masculine qualities like king, warrior, hero. And there's different practices in your own temple space that then in partnership, instead of twin flame attachment, it's actually detachment with sacred union is the templating because it's the God aspect within him, the Son of God. So you're connecting with your mortal partner to your immortal beloved in spirit with and through your mortal partner. So there's a differentiation, and that's what opens up the higher bandwidths and strata of consciousness. So instead of soul to soul intimacy and interpersonal exchange, it's essentially hiragami. It's like god and goddess, priest and priestess, magician and sorceress making love for all of that archetypal power in the bedroom between two people. So it's like star and starlet. It's like a consciousness templating that gives more power and beauty in presence. So when you can hold that structure in a partnership with detachment, but presence, because attachment leads to suffering. So we can talk more about twin flameships. Because most women
Mhm.
will get like attached to a partner and then it leads to suffering, disappointment. We can also talk about fantasy. The divine union, eros, and obsession, power liminal goes into this, where women will have desires and obsessions towards aspects, usually not of mortal men, but of the archetypal divine masculine. So, what if those were qualities of your immortal beloved that were just fractured from you because you thought it was John Stamos, a lower truth incarnate,
Mhm.
led to disappointment and fracture? But what if the qualities, the archetypal qualities that ignites your eros and obsession were signs from your immortal beloved in spirit to return home to connect with him, that as you become reunified, your radiance attunes this out of mortal men into the divine masculine so you can commune and influence in divine experience.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm tracking. So, if okay, let me just wrap this up in my words just to make sure I am actually understanding you correctly. So it's like
Yeah.
if we're in a physical partnership or there
Mhm.
is an individual that may be acting as a mirror for us even if we're not like in physical union, either way, that mortal human serves as a mirror, but it's really the archetypal energies working through them that is attracting us to them. And that becomes a mirror reflection for us to embody our own divinity. Is that part of what you're saying? Because that's kind of how I'm starting to interpret it. To
Yes.
come
However,
into
that's also the trap.
this part okay, so, okay, where am I still trapped? This is probably a
Well,
great case study then in real time of the misinterpretations that we have of this whole process. Because it's pretty high level when you get into true divine union, and I think
yes.
that's
Yeah.
why it's not, fully understood because I've
Yeah.
been on this path for a while on certain levels and degrees, but clearly there's
Mhm.
still yeah, not
Mhm.
it's still not totally like I can't even explain it myself quite yet.
Yes. So it's brilliant that you're teaching and being a student and calibrating and being open because you're accelerating fast on this path to be a voice for others. This is the future of relationships is divine union. People are spending like lifetimes going through this cycle. Mankind is seeking the Holy Grail. It's been
Mhm.
suppressed in religion. So
Yeah.
this is major stuff. So the clearest thing is to look at the relational template. And this is where so many people get caught is what I call the twin flame trap, or even kind of more edgy and dangerous is the conscious twin flame trap because they have divine connection and there's fire and chemistry and eros and they can embody goddess and shakti's running and he has connection and magic. And so what happens is it's the template of twin flameship where the fire of both of them like comes together, great chemistry, and then essentially self-immolates because the eros doesn't have this stable container, which is ultimately the truth of sacred union, which allows heavenly divine masculine power and divine feminine essence beauty to circulate in presence with stability.
Mhm.
So it's really no attachment. It's like star and starlet. And so most people with twin flames, they get attached to the partner, emotional entanglement, and so forth. So it really takes a reframe to really many of the women that I'm working with, like me, I'm devotionally celibate for years when you add it up. I'm still devotionally celibate. And so they're also celibate, many of them, just getting deeper in spirit with their beloved, their version of God the lover. And then they're at a much greater level of beauty and presence to be able to awaken the God aspect within men
Mhm.
from their attuned presence to the spirit of their counterpart.
Mhm.
So yeah, just let's flow off of this
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great because I think
Mhm.
it's like this is part of it is the codification of the terminology needs to be so
Yeah.
anchored in as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, generally in spirituality, there's a lot of conflation of terms because it hasn't been codified. So much was lost. So, you know, I too have been celibate for not probably nearly as long, but you know, well over like going on 2.5 years now because my soul was clearly guiding me to go on this journey within to come into inner union to you know be on the path of detaching so that I could actually do that inner work. And I guess my question, so that totally does make sense, but it's still a very high level practice because that detaching is not easy.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess my next question for you then is like, do you think collectively speaking, those of us on this path, physical union is in the cards for those of us on this path in this lifetime?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Um, so one of the prime manifestations of sacred union is actually Grail Priestess, Grail Oracle, Grail Maj, like or Magi. That's one of the
Mhm,
prime manifestations.
mhm,
So physical partnership, yes, it may or may not be in the cards.
mhm,
So purpose and spiritual soul growth for some people is actually more important than their previous understanding of mortal partnership and just attaching to the next man that comes along who kind of has those qualities. Then years later you're still kind of in the same cycle because you're responding to the mortality and conditions of man rather than being anchored in beauty with the divine masculine power of your true counterpart, which is, yeah, temple practice. So what was the question again?
is physical union like in the cards? Is it possible in this
Yeah.
higher form template in this lifetime, do you think?
Yeah. So that's really like on an individual, like soul basis, I would say. I
Yeah.
think for me that it is that I'm not meant to like remain celibate, but because purpose is actually I'm building an empire with beloved, like she's literally my co-creative partner. I'm following her divine will, and we're building this empire of awakening beauty on the front lines.
Mhm.
So that to me is more important than physical partnership. But the
Mhm.
the the power and magic and beauty that you can have by doing the temple practices, it is high level because most
Mhm.
people like they're centered in the mortal physical world and responding, especially generators, responding to the world around them instead of being anchored in divine union spiritually and living that template of heaven on earth and having the auric radiance and the quanta that attunes the divine masculine out like the Pied Piper and so forth. So
Mhm. Mhm.
mhm.
Okay. So
Allure. Yeah,
yeah, no, that's so beautiful.
real allure.
Because I very much believe that the divine union template is one of the most powerful templates that can heal the planet and truly anchor
Oh yeah,
in new earth. Yeah,
absolutely. Mhm.
And for that reason, it's a tall order at the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah, so it's a true path of mastery and inner mastery
Mhm.
first, and I do very much feel that, it's like even from a less advanced perspective, it's like we have to step into our purpose, our unique individual purposes, and be on that path for physical union with a divine counterpart to be possible, is what I have heard other people say. And so it does make sense to me, and it does resonate that each person has to be embodied to a degree, at least, at the very least, to be on the path of being in their purpose, embodying their soul mission for that union to be possible. And then perhaps the union could then amplify each individual purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the things to be aware of is that there's kind of a pendulum swing. Some
Mm.
people have been noticing this, that a lot of conscious single women are done with like the conscious spirit bros and so forth. They're just done with them. So now they're kind of having an exodus towards normie men or grounded salt of the earth men. And my concern is that it's a pendulum, that they're also going to be disappointed with that because there's some disconnect spiritually and in consciousness with those men, although it may seem like the short-term solution. Some
Mm.
women will spend years going through that experience to then come back to divine union when their beloved is actually calling them home, probably right now, but they're not ready for the signs. So many will go through more twin flame cycles. So that's why us getting these codes out there can help people like find their own path and truth, because some of the women I'm working with, they're like, they saw the sign and like that last twin flame, that was it. Like, I'm done type of a thing. It's time to move back to return home, back to
Mhm.
communion. And
Mhm.
there's so much collective fracture, which we can talk about as well. This is a template that restores heaven on earth, renaissance, harmony between the masculine and feminine in all dimensions, dissolving the shadow patriarchy and dark mother dynamics. Uh, there's so much to say there. So,
Well, my last episode was actually on the Dark Mother, and I was already planning to ask you to speak into the fractures anyway. So let's segue into that whole realm then. Yeah. So what, like, can you explain how you perceive the fractures and how you define that and how it connects to the patriarchy?
yeah, so it goes like pretty deep and powerfully. We can just start looking at how fractured the masculine and feminine is sexually, spiritually, socioculturally, even politically.
Hmm.
And just reference like what's called men going their own way, the MGTOW movement,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
of of how they are fed up with Western women. But really, what's beneath that is this bitterness and
Hmm.
resentment because of their fracture, because a lot of the women themselves are out of harmony and alignment with their divine feminine inheritance and mystical beauty. So it's kind of like postmodern feminism and shadow patriarchy are like these lower conscious egregores kind of battling it out because of fracture, because both the masculine and feminine have lost touch. So this is where like grail goddesses, grail lovers, grail priestesses walking the earth will restore and re-inspire the masculine spirit back into reconnection and righteousness and rightful kingness instead of tyranny. So a lot of this fracture in incels, the concept of like involuntary celibate men, um, is so fractured spiritually. Like there's like hopelessness, dark demonic despair, the powerful egregore that is so fractured from divine feminine beauty, connection, attention. So, like Grail priestesses, like in service to awaken the divine masculine, that's like the front line. Grail queens have different coding where it's generally more about their personal partner and God within him. But
Mm,
Grail priestesses and oracles, they're going to help inspire the lost, forsaken man, because mankind, the spirit, the psyche of man, is seeking. It's an Apollonian dynamic of reunifying with the birth mother womb wound, but it's really seeking reunification as a son of God, sexually, spiritually, with the divine feminine and her beauty. And mankind is not actually worthy of that. His shadow is not worthy of it. Only the divine masculine is worthy of it. So we're talking about reclamation of
mm,
source divine masculine power, archetypal power, Siddhic power, light, truth, warrior, king, to have benevolence in the world, as well as the harmony with the divine feminine, beauty, inspiration, renaissance, and all of that. So, yeah, to bring the world together, there's so much fracture. Like the even the politics of things are just mired in shadow egregores, and I can start naming gene key shadows like all over the place with those, and it's like sacred union can restore harmony in the world. Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm so glad you brought up, what is it? The MGTOW? Is that what
Yeah,
the
Migto.
Because I actually I had a subscriber actually reach out to me via email to from
Mhm.
kind of a little bit more the 3D perspective. He was like, "Hey, could you do a video on, or maybe this would be a possible video on the gender wars." And he
Mhm.
was, because it was in response to this um the dark feminine video that I did, the dark mother video, and the Jezebel spirit
Sure.
I brought up as well. And
Yeah.
he was asking what my perspective on it was, and did I think that it was like the lunar distortions that were contributing to women expecting everything from men and stuff like that. And I was like, well, there's a lot here. But
Yeah.
he
Mhm.
specifically actually asked about the MGTOW movement. And the way I
Mhm.
see it is the
Correct.
feminist movement is a distortion of the patriarchy itself. It's an inversion of empowered feminine. It's not true divine feminine. And so it's created
Yeah.
this, like, another kind of pendulum swing is one way
Yeah.
to look at it.
Exactly.
So yeah, the fracturing. So what would you say is like the core wounding of the masculine right now?
Well, there's there is disconnection with the Son of God concept
Mm,
um, with many men, uh, but really it's from the fracture from their own divine masculine inheritance,
mm,
as well as fracture from the Holy Grail itself. And so, like a normal man can never believe he could be a prince or be worthy of like a super starlet. And he isn't. His mortal self, his ego, inflated only becomes more ego. That's not sexual. That's not spiritual. That's not what she's seeking.
mhm,
So it's like the fracture, the great core wound. It to me, it centers around the Holy Grail itself, or divine union, internal spiritual psychosomatic reunification with the immortal beloved. That's how a man can become worthy in presence to relate with divine feminine beauty
mm,
and to awaken it, to inspire it. Because most women, they're seeking, there is something about hypergamy, and this is fascinating that women, it's so simple. Dr. Jordan Peterson refers to this as well. Like they're going for the archetypes, their eros and obsession is drawn to power. Now, there's lower forms and distortions of power all over the place. But what's these two primordial forces of attraction are power and beauty. Beauty is attracted to power. The cleanest, purest template is divine union, where it's godly power and goddess power, sophionic source, divine feminine, fractal beauty, and light quanta. So it's reunifying with the divine masculine and feminine reclamation, and then with the beloved to be
Mhm.
worthy of communion itself, the Holy Grail.
Mhm.
So that's why I think the core wound is for the masculine. It's just this fracture from his own divine masculine inheritance, where it's about his ego and then these shadow games and all. Oh, there's so much fracture and shadow and force games in the world. Reunification is the answer. I see it.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, that's
Miracles.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so that
Yeah.
brings me to another kind of layer here. So we are actually recording this on Friday the 13th, Divine Feminine Day, but also tomorrow is this big collective protest. And to me, it's just kind of another propaganda distortion, but it's No King's Day. And obviously we know it's a revolt against tyranny and authoritarianism at face value, but some layers that were coming through is that this is also supposedly men's mental health awareness month. I don't know the exact term for it. And actually, when you look at statistics, mental health amongst men, it's not
Yeah.
it's not great, and 80% of suicides are committed by men, roughly.
Yeah.
Um, and the statistics are just rising and increasing. And so we have this anti king narrative, and there is this also divine king archetype. So it's like there's the shadow and the light. And at face value,
Yeah.
it sounds like, yes, like power to the people, no more tyranny. But then, like, the deeper insidious message underlying it is maybe perhaps, and I would love your insights onto this, perhaps like disempowering and disenfranchising to the true divine masculine, because there's more of that narrative coming through the
Yeah.
spiritual community as well. So to kind of just encapsulate this as well, like the differentiation between the false king and then true divine masculine leadership, but
Yeah.
what this king template really is about, maybe.
Yes. So man rebirths dinosaur, dinosaur eats man, woman inherits the earth. Is that what tomorrow's about? um, yeah. So yeah, there's so much with this. It's coming from this the jinky shadow of reaction.
Mm,
So it's like the feminine reaction to the tyranny, which we can accept and acknowledge does exist. But that's really the shadow masculine. It's not even the dark masculine
yeah.
or the light king integrated masculine.
Mm,
Um, so this is the thing, like we see like Diddy's empires fallen now, and
mm,
like these other former tyrant kings, Harvey Weinstein,
mm,
and others, their empires, shadow empires are falling. And like these are big dynamics. There's a lot of like shadow forces that are out there at play in the world, a lot that's going on. And so there's a lot at stake. And
mm,
fortunately, like divine union's becoming like more popular. uh I'm kind of like an anomaly because there's very few men who are like the alchemists doing what I'm doing. So it's more women, and it should be, because as they reunify, they're going to inspire and consult with these powerful men, as well as helping other men to reclaim their divine source power, not
mm,
like power versus force, where force is power over people and manipulation and shadow games and things like that. But divine source power,
Mhm.
that like a Grail oracle is going to work with kings and emperors of industry to attune them into harmony to remove the shadow and tyranny. So it's
Mhm.
actually a time, and it's so important and critical that women like you are recognizing that the post-modern feminist is coming from shadow consciousness. It's its own egregore, and it's keeping this fracture. And
Mhm.
so, like, the more models of reunification we have, the more healing and renaissance there's going to be. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important because I see this and I think reactionary is the perfect word for it. This reactionary energy on both sides. And it's like, okay, union is about coming together and even from a collective perspective, it's just like the black and white. There's no room for nuance anymore. And this isn't just about the masculine and the feminine. This is about all polarized issues at this point, but this is like, and that's why I think like this inner union is the solution not just for relational templates but for healing the entire world, because it's really just an emanation of the separation within, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. So oh my goodness, okay, so we have discussed the idea of like the magi. It's the word has come up anyway a number of times. Could you also define that and just discuss this idea of like the Holy Grail lineage and the magi and what these terms really mean and what they speak into?
Yes. So generally, the three prime Grail lines are Sophia, Rose Magdalene, and Muse. These are ancient divine feminine reunified goddess fractal lineages
Mm-hmm.
that are now like reawakening more into remembrance after eons of suppression. Religion historically has kind of excluded, except in India and a couple other places, but largely excluded divine feminine, archetypal feminine consciousness and priestesshood. So, magician, I am like sourced in and initiated as Muse's high priest magician. So, I do light working, energy healing, beauty activations, source like in her codes to work with all the archetypes to awaken divine feminine beauty and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Grail beauty is what I'm like, that's what the medicine the world is missing.
Mm.
Grail beauty and consciousness. And that is like, there's like when men see and sense, because like a goddess or queen can be doing her own thing, he's not going to feel anything. She's just doing her own thing. He gets like more depressed and more fractured and more into the darkness, the
Mm.
shadow, and questioning his worth. And he's trying to seek his worth, but there's no light at all. But
Mm.
when a woman comes along who cares, who's reunified, who can like give him attention, that's nurturing and it's starting to like awaken his soul into hope and possibility. So like Grail priestesses, just like more women like you walking the world who care about the divine masculine awakening on earth and kingship to dissolve tyranny. So it's like it's all with this. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you define Grail beauty and consciousness?
Yeah. So Grail beauty, I like to specifically call like Grail allure.
Mhm,
So we can look at it from an archetypal lens. I
mhm,
work with the archetypes a lot. Um, Let me say this: the future of beauty influence, because like there's beauty influencers and beauty, the beauty industry. The
mhm,
future of beauty influence is allure, and the future of allure is Grail allure. which is reunified allure. So it's a woman who is circulating her beloved in spirit throughout her energy body. And that is alchemical medicine, just being in her presence. And like that's what inspired the Muse Priestess lineage, was me just receiving the medicine from their codes, just from their beauty, above language, above culture. Beauty is alchemical, and it's really a language of light. So like grail beauty. So we can look at like there's goddess, like the
Mhm.
archetypal goddess, earth goddess, water goddess, mermaid, Melusine. So there's different like fractals, but then there's like grail goddess or reunified goddess who is more connected to the god aspect in circulating, because a lot of goddesses are on their own divine feminine reclamation, but they don't have the circulation of spirit. So that's actually what's constellating their relationships and template with men, and what they're attracting and experiencing is how their chakras and aura are communicating without them usually realizing it. So Grail allure is a woman who is reunified within, and she's just emanating this, and it's medicine to the masculine just being near it. And they can't ever get enough of it, and they're going to start like paying for sessions to receive attention and healing and light working from women like this. This is also the future. And we can talk about the future of the relationship industry as well, as people exodus out of normie relationships and twin flame ships into divine union. It's mostly a like solo practice, but then it becomes like Grail Tantra with a partner when it's constellated properly. But it's so easy to get entangled. That's why, like you're doing, like, and me, we may have to have time alone to go deep to connect in spirit with our true beloved. Mhm. And then
Okay.
that like shifts everything.
Mhm. Okay, interesting. So, you mentioned tantra, and I wasn't really planning to go down this road because that's not
Yeah.
really a path that has been, very large in my field. It has not really attracted me, I think, because there are a lot of distortions in tantra. So, can you just elaborate on your perspective of tantra and what Grail Union tantra, whatever that term would be, what that actually is, and is it different from people's typical perspective of tantra?
Yes. Yes. And yeah, it's important to acknowledge that there are so many distortions and shadows
Yeah.
with Western neo tantra, people call it, and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that one can throw out tantra with the bathwater, but the
Mm,
truth of communion is such a purified, powerful template that true tantra is with communion at the
mhm,
highest levels of consciousness. So there's hope for those who have the pure foundation to bring such power, beauty, magic, healing. I'm a trained Tantra Daka,
mm,
and the magic is very real in sacred temple space.
mhm,
That it's just about like, yeah, we're gonna throw it out with the bathwater. So I thought about starting Grail Tantra, but I don't know if it's ever gonna start. But Divine Union has such purity and integrity and detachment with it that like I've called it out on my Facebook. Like there's history of things where people are throwing out tantra again, understandably, but it's like I wouldn't do that because that's actually the deeper desire is communion grade tantra with a
mhm,
partner.
yeah,
And so some will never discover that because of past wounding. Ironically, with the purity, power, and integrity of like a Grail Magi, they can clear and release all of the wounds, or if they reclaim their own Grail Priestess. So, a
mm.
lot
Yeah,
to talk about.
yeah. That's no, it's interesting because there really is so much nuance on this path, and our human tendency is to go black and white. It's like that also reminded me of when people, they leave new age spirituality and do the pendulum swing to born again Christian. It's like throwing out tantra completely versus recognizing that there is a pure form. Just most people, most teachings are not purified. And
Yeah.
I don't, so I forget the name of the book, but it did speak about, was it maybe Mary Magdalene Revealed? And I'd be curious if you've read that or know about it. But one of those Mary Magdalene books was talking about the sacred sexual alchemical union between Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, and how it was actually through her Grail womb that he was able to achieve the resurrection level of mastery that he did. So I don't know if you've gone deep into those teachings yourself, but is that kind of what you see this Grail union as? Communion, I suppose.
Yes, so we have like the codification within the Rose Magdalene line of that.
Mhm.
We have that.
Mhm.
And there's the concept of, yeah, Sophia and like Christ Christos, or like a form of God, the Christed lover, Sophia, Christos, Sophia. So these are anciently codified, and we can also reference like Shiva Shakti,
Mhm.
and it's also communion codes.
Mhm.
And so these are ancient in principle. And so, like, there's a potential for a reawakening here. Um, but it would require like clearing out all the distortions and being able to hold sacred temple space, um, which I must do and I always do. And I have that integrity in like 1,400 sessions now. Not as many DACA sessions, but mostly like the energy work sessions.
Mhm.
So yeah, because so many women, they're done with conscious bros. They're done with tantra and throwing it out, or maybe they'll do the pendulum swing. But is there a way to integrate like everything? And
Mhm.
what are your deepest desires? And
Mhm.
so, like the power liminal, the divine union, there's two of them on my channel.
Mhm.
Uh, Eros, obsession, like it's to reconnect with your desires, because you might end up with a partner who kind of has some of these qualities, but it's actually kind of a twin flame ship.
Mhm.
And as women are like, some are more aware of their biological clock and so forth, it's like, well, maybe what you're seeking is divine union, and you don't have to keep going through all these layers. So it's like getting, yeah, the right guidance and the right timing. Because for many on this, they might actually, it might be their timing to look more into like your other interviews and things like that. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
such important work we're doing. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think like there's just so much nuance here that it's really calling everyone to come into personal mastery and really, figuring out what their path is. I feel is also one of the large lessons here. Um
Mm.
yeah, it's just it's so fascinating the level of consciousness that we're at. Like even within the spiritual community, there's different realms within the spiritual community. And so it's
Yeah,
really a small fraction of humanity that is even aware
yeah,
of this and available for
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So yeah, but
Hmm.
it's also I
Wow.
think the spearhead of the wave of
Mhm.
consciousness, I feel, because this is such a
Yeah.
powerful template. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even like the vision of allure, and Grail allure being the future of that, we're already seeing celebrities that are becoming friends and collaborating with famous muses, which are already
Mhm.
doing magic in the Western collective that is already inspiring indirectly like more of this awareness,
Mhm.
and more people are opening up to it as well. So there's the trinity of muse quanta we can talk about, maybe on a future episode or whatever. I don't know, but
I'm
yeah,
like,
this
"Wait,
is great stuff.
what?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Trinity Muse Quanta, that's a whole subject that I'm not aware of, yeah. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Okay, so I guess what I would love to kind of begin to wrap up with is, so for women, let's start with women. What advice do you have for women on this path right now? Somebody who is seeking divine union, and maybe stuck in the twin flame ship. How, whatever that might look like. What do you suggest her first step would be?
There's two general recommendations. One is to realize her pattern and catch it years, because she might go years
Mm-hmm.
without realizing it's the same pattern that she's been living out.
Mm-hmm.
That if she wants to really receive her deepest desires and those qualities in a partnership, to consider divine union as the path to cultivate the reunification with her desires and obsession, not in fantasy fracture. Fantasy is fracture. That's why, like, having obsession with celebrities, the celebrity is the lower truth. They're separate, there's duality there.
Mm-hmm.
But what if, say it's, Cal Drogo, there's a dark Eros aspect from Jason Momoa that represents that true divine, like that really like inspires her. Well, the truth of that power already exists here and now, divine union, in all of your desires. It's like, what is the constellation of the archetypal and Siddhic masculine qualities of your beloved that inspires and lights you? That's what you can discover, or realize that, am I just going through a pattern of reacting and responding to the next mortal men who kind of have these qualities, but actually it's a twin flame template? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. It's just like awareness. Do I really want to seek divine union to become one with my desires and ultimate fulfillment? So I am the match in resonance to then attract him, incarnate,
Mm-hmm.
or to be fueled in beauty and purpose and spiritual growth. And then part two, could you reframe the question, please, so I can see if I can remember the second part?
Yeah, your advice to a
Recommendation.
woman, yeah, a woman who is on the path and wants to go deeper slash might be stuck in that twin flame ship dynamic or, consciousness. What would your advice be?
Yes. Yeah. So one is just to figure out if she is on the twin flame cycle or
Mhm,
conscious twin flame relational template, and then
mhm,
to discover divine union, like the truth codes of it, to keep seeing more if that's really what she desires. Otherwise, she may spend years going through the same cycle with disappointment, and so forth.
yeah,
And the second part is that discover what her archetypal journey is. Like, what does her soul really desire? And knowing like what your like next 5 year or 3 year archetypes are, like the order of them, that's really going to help guide her path. For example, like if you just knew you were like a rose goddess lover priestess, that's so
mhm,
different from like a vixen ice queen bitch, like different combinations. Like
yeah,
there's so much leverage and medicine with the archetypes. So when she can get soul level spiritual clarity on what her archetypes are, do you want to be in reunification? Then you want to be on a grail path. If you're more in a goddess phase and opening up to the divine masculine, maybe a grail goddess. and then which of the three Grail lines does she resonate with most? So like to get more clarity, yeah, I have the free Heroes Gamos masterclass at mysticalgrail.com. They can sign up and go through that to get some more clarity as well. Um, and I help the women in the Mystical Grail to work with the archetypal aspects of their beloved, to call
Mm,
that in and to work with that spiritually, psychosomatically to transform their presence and just their own archetypes as well. Like, what are their next season archetypes or their debut archetypes? And that has so much power to hone in and fine tune and leverage her transformation and growth in spiritual alignment and fulfillment. Generators really seeking like deep, rich, spiritual, sexual, psychic fulfillment and satisfaction. Knowing your archetypes, goddess, queen, lover, whatever it is, that's going to save you years of time and get you on the path that you really want to be in. And I know what my debut archetypes are. And so it helps me to harness divine masculine alignment, amplifying my soul to be in service. So know
mm.
your discover your archetypes.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, for any, yeah, thank you. That's super helpful for sure. But also for men who might be listening, would you also
Yeah.
recommend learning their own archetypes? Or what advice do you have for men who might be tuning into this?
Ooh. I used to work with men for many years. And if he's seeking worthiness in presence to attract a woman of the beauty and energetic beauty he truly desires, like it's related with the Holy Grail, most likely. Like this is the deeper psychosexual truth. So if he's
Mm,
seeking something and like if he's not inspired, if he's even building a business empire, but he gets there and he's alone and feels lonely, is it even worth it if he's not going to receive the attention and love of the divine feminine? So it's like
mm,
just for the men, reflect upon that and know that there are answers to get outside of like your past experience and conditioning and the shadows and the depression and the fracture to reclaim your divine masculine inheritance, which is prince, hero, lover, warrior, magician, king. These are immortal masculine qualities. So that would be the thing is not just the psychologically, like you can read some of the books. What I
mhm,
do is archetype activations that helps bring in the essence codes into embodiment.
mhm,
So it's to reclaim his divine masculine inheritance because his soul is his true self, not the lower constructed egoic persona. So be on a path of discovering and reclaiming his divine masculine inheritance, and then looking more into reunification with who his beloved would be, because that Apollonian dynamic is he's trying to secretly impress the level of woman that he wants to reunify with. But
mm.
can he be worthy in presence of that beauty? This is about the Holy Grail. So just look more into this material on my main website. There's Divine Union. It's got like a couple dozen blog posts you can get into there as well. So
Okay, yeah, super helpful.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll have all of those resources linked below in the description. But yeah, would you like to just wrap up and clarify for people like what's like the best entry point into your work? Um, what do you recommend probably primarily for women right now, but what's the best entry point for people beyond your website and blog posts?
Yes. So if they are resonating with all of this sacred union, divine union, well, I would follow me on Facebook or friend request.
Mhm.
No promises there, but yeah, Rion Kati, Rion.Kati,
We'll link it, yeah.
and yeah, go to mysticalgrail.com and you can get the free Heroes Gamos like masterclass replay, as well as like other like insight and information there. If they're resonating with Divine Union and wanting to go deeper.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I do like archetype embodiment and allure consulting and transformation like sessions
Okay.
on the main website of sexyg.com. So, mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So we'll have all of that linked below.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is honestly, thank you so much. This is a true
mhm,
honor because it's such powerful work. It's such deep work too. And, there's just, I mean, I've been around the block. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that I don't know, but at the end of the day, there's not that many people out there working at this level. So,
mhm,
thank you. And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's really been an interesting conversation. It's going to be a lot for me to process and integrate. So I'm sure for
Yes.
a lot of the viewers it's going to be the same, but I also know that a lot of people are really ready for the true teachings to go deeper and to really embrace this path because you know uh, a lot of people are kind of hitting walls with their work or frequency fences and ceilings and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's like, okay, we want the real
Mhm.
juice now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow.
this is definitely juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. So,
Yeah.
okay, before I wrap this up, are there any other final
Mhm.
words that you would like to leave with the audience here?
Just if you're feeling like codes, maybe re-listen to this again. Is what I'd recommend. Otherwise, like take the next step because there's more to discover now. Do it on your best timing, but when you feel the inclination just to take the next step, because the rabbit hole towards higher truth, the truth of communion, which I'm still discovering and experiencing, uh, already exists. So it's just like your readiness and awareness to open up, and how much power or beauty could you receive of the truth in the moment and what's blocking it. So, reunification, divine union, this is the template that has already done miracles and can change the world. So,
Mm.
thank you for joining and thank you for having me, Amanda Kelly.
Yes,
Yes.
my honor and pleasure. Oh my goodness. I love that. How much beauty and pleasure and power, I think you said actually. How much beauty and power are you
That
ready to
too.
receive? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been truly an honor. And yes, onward and upward in love and light as we journey home to the heart of truth.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to the Heart of Truth podcast with your host, Amanda Erin Kelly. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or review on your favorite platform. And if you'd like to go deeper, grab your copy of my book, Let There Be Light, and join us inside the free community in Illumina Wisdom School, where you can access free resources to jumpstart your journey, such as a higher self activation and the Body Temple Blueprint Masterclass, as well as explore the plethora of resources, including Awakening Fundamentals and Luminary, my signature path to wholeness and mastery to help you become your own healer and sovereign authority. You can access everything at thisartcalledlife.com or find the links down in the show notes below. Until next time, onward and upward in love and light as we journey home to the heart of truth.